In San Francisco, a car plows into the emergency room of the Austin Medical Center.
Rescuers pull the driver into safety, but later succumbs to his injuries. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. COMELEC sets a condition in withdrawing submitted signature sheets on People's Initiative. PhilHealth expands its benefits coverage by 30%. Russia adds Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas to its wanted list. Severe weather batters Southeast Australia with fierce storms. And Michael Kors's 2024 Winter Runway Show captivates the heart of New York Fashion Week.
Las Vegas, Nevada.
España, Paris, France,
United Kingdom,
Washington, D.C.
London Bureau, Papua New Guinea, in New York,
Washington, D.C.
Mata ng Agila. Mata ng Agila.
Mata ng
Mata ng Agila International.
Trusted, connected, on point.
Only one of the 211 submitted signature sheets has been withdrawn after the announcement of COMELEC. COMELEC Chair George Garcia has changed sides on the basis of whether the People's Initiative move will advance or not. TJ Mendoza for the details.
During an interview, COMELEC Chair George Garcia said that only a town from Antique withdrew their submitted signature sheet. This comes after the announcement of the COMELEC that signature drive proponents can now withdraw their submitted signatures from the polling body.
Nag-issue po tayo ng isang kalatas na sabi po natin na kung sino ang gustong kumuha ng mga signature sheets nito, signature pages nito, ay pwede nilang kuhanin sa mga local COMELEC namin. Subalit yung panawagan natin, isa pa lang po isang bayan.
To withdraw the submitted signatures, the COMELEC set a condition.
Kondisyon po kasi natin, pagka po gusto nilang kuhanin yung signature sheets, ay dapat po ibalik sa amin yung mga certifications na in-issue po namin kung ilan yung tinanggap naming signature sheets at ilan po na mga signatures yung tinanggap din namin. So dapat po maibalik po nila sa amin yon. So sa kasalukuyan, ito po ay nasa pangangalaga ng mga local COMELEC po natin.
Chairman Garcia further explains the reason behind the suspension of receiving signatures for the People's Initiative. This is also part of the review of the existing implementing rules and regulations.
Subalit muli ang Komisyon ng Election na nagdesisyon po na isuspinde hindi lamang yung proseso, kung hindi isuspinde po ang implementasyon ng aming IRR na tinatawag upang ito ay magkaroon ng mas malalimang pagre-review sapagkat titingnan din natin kung talaga bang nararapat yung IRR na yan, ganung may mga issue na wala namang batas talaga na sapat para po sa pagpapatupad ng People's Initiative sa ating saligang batas. At the same time, tama po rin kayo, napakadami po tayo nakita ng mga kulang at hindi sapat na wala provision sa ating pong IRR na sa ating palagay kung magtutuloy-tuloy po tayo, malamang ay magkakaproblema at magkakaaway at magkakagulo kapag dumating sa punto ng verification.
Garcia also admits that SC's decision will be more clear on the current dispute if the People's Initiative would be formally raised in the higher court. He further explains that any amendments to the Constitution would still be determined by either People's Initiative or Constituent Assembly.
Sadya pong napakabigat ng isang trabaho katulad po niyan, yung People's Initiative o kahit po naman yung Constituent Assembly sapagkat trabaho po tungkulin ng Commission on Election. Sa bandang uli, baliwala talaga yung mararamdaman namin, matutuwa o malulungkot o whatever sapagkat basta po may na-file kasi sa amin, magti-trigger po yan nung mismong guidelines natin patungkol sa paano ang gagawin ng COMELEC kapag ka People's Initiative yan o kapag ka nag-Constituent Assembly. So, ipe-perform po namin yung duty namin na yan. Ang problem lang po talaga, i-squeeze namin sa napaka-sensitibo na namin na schedule, na napaka-critical na schedule. Sapagkat tatandaan po natin, kami po yung naghahanda para sa national and local election ng 2025 at BSKE ng 2025 din, 5 buwan pagkatapos ng national and local election. So lahat po yan, alam niyo po yung paghahanda Yung isang taon, tapos po yan, lalo pat automated po ang ating 2025 election. So, hindi naman po nangangulugan na dahil nga maaari ipinopropose na ngayon yung Constituent Assembly, ay mawawalan po ng trabaho ang COMELEC tungkol sa pagkukonduct ng plebisito. Either way, ang punot dulo, again, plebisito pa rin po.
TJ Mendoza for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The leadership of the Senate and House of Representatives agreed to have a ceasefire over the charter change and put an end to their word war. The top leaders shook hands and agreed in front of President Ferdinand Marcus Jr. during the 100th birthday celebration of Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Juan Ponce in Malacanang. Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri said that he and Speaker Martin Romualdez decided to work together professionally over the People's Initiative for Charter Change.
Good news, nag-usap kami ni Speaker kanina, sabi po namin ay let's work professionally, tigil mo ng bangayan, and let's continue to work for the benefit of the administration para sa ating mga kababayan din. Hindi na maganda kung palagi po kami nagbabangayan, nag-aaway. So, we committed to talk to each other, hopefully next week for a secondary meeting.
But Senate President Zubiri admitted that Romualdez made no comment to prevent other members of the lower house from speaking out or calling out his fellow senators. Zubiri added that he cannot stop the members of the Senate who are investigating the process of signature collection for the People's Initiative in exchange for an alleged payout.
I know medyo nagkasakitan ng ibang mga senador at mga congressmen, particularly my majority floor leader, but it doesn't mean we cannot work professionally, di ba? Professional naman po tayo, that doesn't mean we cannot work. Ang sabi lang namin, let today be a good sign, and let today be a sign that we'll work professionally at tigil muna yung bangayan, and let's focus on the work at hand.
Senator Bong Revilla said he intervened to stop the bickering between the Senate and the House as the public is already affected.
It's a good start, no? Hindi man natin mabigla yan, pero hindi natin maawat yung ibang gusto magsalita. But panawagan ko rin sa House, even dito sa mga kasama natin dito sa Senado, na lamig muna tayo ng ulo. It's high time na isipin natin yung mga kababayan natin. Maipasa natin yung mga dapat ipasa, yung para makatulong tayo sa sambayang Pilipino.
Former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile has turned 100 today. Enrile, who goes by the initials JPE, is currently serving as the chief legal advisor of President Ferdinand Marcus Jr. JPE served for 22 years in the Senate, having the third longest tenure in the history of the upper house. The former Senate president also survived COVID-19 2 times and pneumonia thrice during the pandemic. JPE is overcoming the macular degeneration in his eyes, which restricts his ability to read.
The Philippine National Police Anti-Cyber Crime Group has reported a drop in cybercrime by at least 24% in January. Data from the ACG disclosed there were 1,458 cybercrime cases reported last month, a 24.72% decrease from 1,937 incidents in the same month in 2023. The figure, however, is higher by 84.79% compared to 789 cases in 2022. Philippine National Police Chief General Benjamin Acorda has ordered the ACG and other police units to bolster the capabilities of their cybercrime investigators, notably in equipment and training. The National Police is set to implement preventative measures. This includes sustaining strong relations and collaborations with public and private stakeholders and providing cyber tips online and such. The initiatives are in line with the National Police's commitment to equip people and organizations with knowledge and skills to protect themselves from emerging cyber threats. The National Police also urged the public to report cybercrime to the authorities for proper action.
The Philippine Embassy in Kuala Lumpur has set its sights on registering around 550,000 stateless Filipinos residing in Sabah, with the eventual aim of extending to them the services and privileges available to Filipino citizens. According to the Department of Foreign Affairs Under Secretary Eduardo Jose de Vega, there are an estimated 770,000 Filipinos in Sabah, of which 550,000 lack proper documentation. He added that the embassy has not specified a timeline for this initiative, recognizing it as an ongoing project expected to span several years. De Vega noted that many of the undocumented individuals face challenges in obtaining birth registration due to the absence of identification documents. Furthermore, the embassy plans to collaborate with the Department of Health to ensure that these stateless Filipinos have access to basic healthcare services.
President Ferdinand Marcus Jr. expressed his gratitude to the United States for providing emergency assistance to communities affected by flooding and landslides in Mindanao. According to the Presidential Communications Office, President Marcos conveyed his appreciation during a visit by U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Mary Kay Carlson, at Malacanang Palace on Tuesday. During the courtesy call, Ambassador Carlson announced that the U.S. government has also extended an additional $1.25 million in emergency support, supplementing the aid already delivered by 2 U.S. transport planes. Furthermore, she commended the Department of Social Welfare and Development for its efforts in coordinating relief supplies for victims of the typhoon and landslides in Mindanao.
The Department of Justice, or DOJ, ordered the filing of criminal charges against the owners and corporate officers of the Mt Princess Empress, the ship tank, or the ship that sank and caused an oil spill in Oriental Mindoro and Batangas provinces last year. The DOJ said they found that the owners of the Mt Princess Empress submitted falsified documents, including a construction certificate and affidavit of ownership. The DOJ also instructed to file charges against 1 personnel of the Maritime Industry Authority and a private individual. The criminal charges include multiple counts of falsification of private documents, use of falsified documents, and multiple counts of falsification of public documents. The Mt Princess Empress sank on February 28 off Juan, Oriental Mindoro, while carrying 900,000 liters of industrial fuel. The oil spill affected more than 75 kilometers of coastline and 42,400 families from 107 affected areas in Oriental Mindoro, Palawan, Antique, and Batangas. Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla said negligence cannot be used as an excuse to destroy the environment and livelihood of people.
The Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, or PhilHealth, said that it will increase its benefits coverage by 30% this February 14, 2024. PhilHealth noted that the rates were adjusted to lighten the financial burden of patients from high inflation. The agency previously had implemented hikes on its rates of benefits coverage for some patients. Beneficiaries include patients needing dialysis. Patients of high-risk pneumonia have also received benefit raised from 32,000 pesos to 90,100 pesos. Patients who suffered from ischemic stroke would obtain aid worth 76,000 pesos from 28,000 pesos. Meanwhile, those who sustain hemorrhagic conditions would receive 80,000 pesos from 38,000 pesos. Coming up, Russia places another Western leader on its wanted list. Hungary's president resigns over a controversial pardon. And in a shock move, a U.S. Congress impeaches the Homeland Security Secretary. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
kayamanan sa goodwill.
Gusto niyo bang mahukay ang katotohanan?
Pagpalalampasin ang kapanapanabik ng mga pangyayari sa partidang minahal nyo na. Ang Goodwill!
Season 3.
Tuwing 4 p.m. every Sunday.
Dito lang
Sa Net 25.
Goodwill Season 3, tuwing 4 p.m. dito sa Net 25.
Let's get together sa Net 25. Sa Net 25.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. The office of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol confirmed that North Korea hacked the personal emails of Yoon's aide. The cyber breach happened ahead of President Yoon's state visit to the United Kingdom last year. Sources said the hacking incident happened after the staff member used a personal email account for official purposes. Specifics of the leaked information remain undisclosed, but a high-ranking government official said that hackers assessed or accessed President Yoon's trip schedule and stole messages sent by him. The president's office clarified that while individual email accounts were compromised, the overall security system remained intact. The office explained that the breach resulted from a security lapse by an administrator who used the commercial email for official duties. Media reports say this is the first time that North Korea successfully hacked into a member of the South Korean president's team.
The International Monetary Fund has issued a warning about confiscating frozen Russian assets. IMF First Deputy Managing Director Gita said that an assessment of the legal grounds is needed before the immobilized reserves are seized. In a statement, the senior official said, and I quote, "The decision of what to do with Russia's frozen assets rests solely with the countries that are holding these assets and the negotiations among them." She noted that IMF analysts would take a closer look at the impact of any decisions made on the fund's members and the global economy. This is after the United States and the European Union have blocked an estimated $300 billion worth of assets from the Russian central bank since the start of the Ukraine conflict in 2022. Belgium has also seized $211 billion worth of that amount, which last year accumulated nearly 4.4 billion euros in interest on the funds. Earlier this week, the European Council reviewed the steps toward the potential confiscation of the said interest income. Meanwhile, the United States Department revealed that Washington will continue to be in active negotiations with its allies, including the G7 on possible incomes to seize Russian reserves. The IMF official, however, has not provided any comments on the Western sanctions imposed on Russia.
Russian authorities have initiated criminal proceedings against Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas, accusing her of destroying or damaging monuments commemorating Soviet soldiers. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov confirmed the charges during a phone call with journalists. He further said that Estonian Secretary of State Taimar Peterkop and Lithuanian Culture Minister Simonas Kairis are also implicated in the case. The controversy stems from Prime Minister Kallas's decision nearly 2 years ago, shortly after the onset of the conflict in Ukraine, to remove all Soviet monuments from public spaces across Estonia. She appears to be the first head of state to be placed on the Russian Interior Ministry's wanted list since the war began.
The president of Hungary stunned the nation by handing her resignation live on television after a controversy surrounding a decision to grant clemency to a man convicted of concealing child sexual abuse. Last week, it came to light that Hungarian President Katalin Novak had pardoned a man who was imprisoned for coercing children to retract allegations of sexual abuse against a director of a state-operated children's home. This move sparked immediate outrage, prompting calls from the opposition for Novak's resignation.
Magyar emberként azt várnám a köztársasági elnöktől, hogy ne hibázzon. Ha mégis, akkor nézzen szembe azokkal, akiknek elszámolással tartozik, és vállaljon felelősséget. Akár azzal, hogy lemond a köztársasági elnöki tisztségről. Bocsánatot kérek azoktól, akiket megbántottam, és minden olyan áldozattól, aki úgy érezhette, nem állok ki mellette. A gyerekek és a családok védelme mellett voltam, vagyok és leszek.
Furthermore, former Minister of Justice Judith Varga, who authorized the pardon, has also stepped down from her position leading the election campaign for Prime Minister Viktor Orban's ruling Fidesz party.
The World Health Organization warns that conflict-torn Sudan's summer months lean season could trigger catastrophic levels of hunger as millions there are already struggling for food. Bobby Soriano tells us more.
Acting WHO representative to Sudan, Peter Graff, warns that a perfect storm is brewing with people weakened by hunger, falling prey to infectious diseases. This in a health system which has virtually collapsed amid the fighting. The lean season, roughly from April to July, is that time of year when the ability to access sufficient food is most difficult. War that broke out in April last year has killed thousands and sparked a humanitarian disaster. UN numbers show that around 25 million people, that is more than half the country's population, need aid. Nearly 18 million of them face acute food insecurity. Graff says about 5 million people are already in emergency levels of hunger. He mentions the upcoming lean season is anticipated to lead to catastrophic levels of hunger in the worst affected areas. He adds that malnourished children are at increased risk of dying from illnesses. These include diarrhea, pneumonia, and measles, especially in a setting where they lack access to life-saving health services. He says the situation in Sudan is therefore a perfect storm. Bobby Soriano from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, fighting between government forces and M23 rebels resumes around the strategic eastern town of Sake. Clashes between the military and M23 rebels have intensified in recent days around DR Congo's key eastern town. The town of Sake lies about 20 kilometers from Goma, which is the capital of North Kivu province. Residents of Sake say the battle was taking place on the hills overlooking the area. A security source says despite the situation, they have control of Sake. The source says that fighting, however, is underway at the moment. Sake Mayor Maumbi Maburi says the town's population had fled. Maburi confirms that the rebels occupy southern Sake while pro-government militia are in the northern part of the town. The UN Security Council voices concern at escalating violence in eastern DRC and condemns the rebel offensive launched near Goma on February 7. A flurry of diplomatic efforts to halt the fighting has so far failed to find a lasting solution.
Meanwhile, the United States says it was deeply concerned about the detention of a human rights activist in Venezuela who stands accused of involvement in an alleged plot to assassinate President Nicolas Maduro. Estela Dominique reports.
White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says the administration of President Joe Biden is deeply concerned about the detention of human rights activist Rocio San Miguel in Venezuela. Kirby says the White House is watching the situation very, very closely.
We are aware of reports that Rocio San Miguel and I think a couple of members of her family now have been taken into custody. We're deeply concerned about that. This is a time when, as I have said before, Mr. Maduro needs to meet the commitments that he made back in the fall about how they're going to treat civil society, political activists, as well as opposition parties, and even those members of Venezuelan society that may want to run for office. They've got to meet those commitments. I won't go into speculating about what exactly happened here or what we might do as a result, but I can tell you we're watching this very, very closely, and we're deeply concerned by her arrest.
57-year-old Rocio San Miguel, a lawyer, military expert, and critic of Maduro's government, was detained on Friday. She was held in the immigration area of an airport in the Venezuela capital, Caracas. Her detention comes in an election year that has already seen Maduro block his main opposition rival. This has prompted the U.S. to threaten to reimpose recently eased oil sanctions. Estela Dominique for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The House of Representatives has made the historic decision to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, marking the first impeachment of a cabinet secretary in nearly 150 years. This action follows mounting pressure on House Republicans from their constituents to hold U.S. President Joe Biden's administration accountable for its immigration and border security policies. House Republicans accuse Mayorkas of committing high crimes and misdemeanors in his management of the southern border. They specifically charge him with failing to enforce immigration policies and providing false information about the border security situation. The impeachment process now moves to the Senate for a trial. However, given the Democrats' narrow control of the Senate, it is unlikely to follow through.
Democratic Representative Tom Suwotsi is heading back to Congress after winning the special election in New York's 3rd District to replace former GOP Representative George Santos. Suwotsi's victory over Republican Macy Philip cuts Republicans' thin House majority by 1 seat, making legislating even more difficult moving forward, providing a guide for Democrats competing in similar competitive districts. The Democrat may seek to be sworn into Congress as early as Thursday. If not, he may have to wait until the end of the month after the House takes an extended recess for President's Day. At his victory party Tuesday night, Suwotsi thanked a long list of supporters and aides and ran through some of the attacks he faced in the hard-fought contest. Suwotsi's speech was initially interrupted by protesters who accused him of supporting genocide in Gaza, with one of them walking on stage to heckle Suwotsi while holding what appeared to be a Palestinian flag. Suwotsi may have been helped by a winter storm as Democrats built up an early advantage, but his victory also comes with some built-in advantages in name recall and fundraising as the district's former congressman. The result is a blow to the Nassau County GOP, which has been energized by a string of victories in recent years amid a backlash to Democratic-run New York City and Albany. Before the Santos ouster, Republicans represented every congressional district on Long Island. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries celebrated Suwotsi's win and the shrinking Republican majority on X by writing, and I quote, "1 down, 4 to go."
Former U.S. President Donald Trump's criticisms on NATO have drawn strong backlash from the international community. Jane Kathleen Gregorio has the report.
Speaking at a campaign rally in South Carolina, former President Trump said he would encourage Russia to attack members of NATO who did not meet their financial responsibilities.
They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, "Well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us?" I said, "You didn't pay? You're delinquent?" He said, "Yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills."
A senior fellow at the International Institute for Strategic Studies says former U.S. President Donald Trump's comments will not force the hand of the military alliance.
Trump wasn't the first to make those kinds of comments. And where the increases did come through in NATO, it was in years where strategic conditions and strategic drivers shifted.
U.S. President Joe Biden says Trump's comments are dangerous.
Can you imagine a former president of the United States saying that? The whole world heard it. The worst thing is he means it. For God's sake, it's dumb, it's shameful, it's dangerous, it's un-American.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The United Nations slams the emphasis placed by some governments on buying weapons at the cost of policies tackling global warming and hunger. Juan has the details.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Gutteres says it is distressing to see governments spending heavily on arms, while starving budgets for food security, climate action, and broader sustainable development. During a Security Council meeting on the links between food, climate, and conflict crises, Gutteres says the deadly nexus of hunger, climate chaos and conflict can be broken, and the threat they pose to international peace and security can be quelled. The UN chief calls on the Council to act with policies addressing all three issues together. He warns that without action, the situation will deteriorate.
Conflicts are multiplying. The climate crisis is set to spiral as emissions continue to rise, and acute food insecurity has been increasing year on year. The World Food Programme estimates that over 330 million people were affected in 2023, and it has warned of an acute deterioration in 18 hunger hotspots earlier this year. To avoid mounting threats to international peace and security, we must step in and act now to break the deadly links between conflict, climate, and food insecurity.
Gutteres says there is no national security without food security, and there will be no food security without enhanced action to stop climate change. Joanne Soriano for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Global conflicts plaguing the world today signal dangerous years ahead. This according to a military think tank in the United Kingdom. Bernadette Regini reports.
A British military think tank warns that the Israel-Hamas war, conflict in Ukraine, and rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific and Africa herald what is likely to be a more dangerous decade. The International Institute for Strategic Studies, or IISS, says in its annual military balance report that the world has entered a highly volatile security environment. The report warns that the current military security situation heralds what is likely to be a more dangerous decade, characterized by the brazen application by some of military power to pursue claims. The report adds that the era of insecurity is resetting the global defense industrial landscape. This with the U.S. and Europe ramping up production of missiles and ammunition after decades of underinvestment. Bernadette Regini for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Cryptocurrency Bitcoin has hit the highest price of $50,000 since the year 2021. This is after Bitcoin joined the top 10 of the world's valuable assets by market capitalization in early January, valued at nearly $1 trillion. Bitcoin was followed by Tesla and Visa with a slightly lower of $49,888 per token on Tuesday. Experts said that the new spot exchange traded funds by Bitcoin has attracted billions of dollars in the initial weeks of trading. ETFs allow more retail investors to hold Bitcoin indirectly through funds that trade on exchanges. Meanwhile, experts disclose that Bitcoin's next halving, a mechanism to limit supply every 4 years, could provide another price increase. Investors predict that Bitcoin price could break the $69,800 reached in November of 2021.
Multi-billionaire Jeff Bezos has sold 24 million Amazon shares this month, raising the total value of sales to more than $4 billion. The first sale of 12 million shares was announced in a regulatory filing on Friday. The sale of another 12 million shares was announced on Tuesday. Sources say Bezos is giving away his shares in Amazon as part of his philanthropy. The Amazon founder also moved to Miami from Seattle last year, saying he would save around $280 million in tax on the $4 billion worth of stock he has sold. But legal experts say Bezos will still be liable to federal taxes as a result of selling the shares. Bloomberg Billionaires Index says Bezos is currently the world's second richest person with a net worth of more than $200 billion.
Up next, Turkey is in a race against time to rescue trapped miners. Mexican authorities make a landmark drug bust. And Intuitive Machines plans to drop a lunar lander. Matanang Agila International will be back after a short break.
Magandang araw, Aranatics! Naku, special ang episode natin today dahil ako po ay na-challenge na mag-commute. Naku! Dapat wala akong tatanungan, ako lang! Kasya naman ako doon, mahangin naman. Okay, keep the change.
Thank you po.
Andito na tayo, guys, sa Quiapo! Papuntang Binondo, magkanong isang pasahero? 20. Kasi, Eto, hopya, ube. Feeling ko nasa Hong Kong ako, di ba? Malinamnam. Nasa Chinatown na tayo. Bicho-bicho with milk? Check. Tusok-tusok. China tsuko. Unip. Tayong fishball.
Let's get together. Sunday 25. Sunday 25.
Gusto lang naman yung mas papapagong pa wala. Unlimited authentic samgyupsal. Paparating na!
Kaya mo ba magdala dito ng authentic unlimited samgyupsal?
Meron po. Naalala mo dati nung humingi ka sa akin na pakwan, tas nasa loob mangga.
Ikaw po din sa kasama mo?
Positive. Wait lang. Ikukunin na ako. Punta na tayo sa ospital.
A dairy farmer tragically lost his life and nearly 500,000 households were plunged into darkness as a fierce storm ravaged Australia's state of Victoria. Video footage captured the relentless onslaught of torrential rain and powerful winds which tore through the landscape, uprooting trees and demolishing entire sheds. Authorities believe the dairy farmer was fatally struck by flying debris while operating a tractor during the storm. Meanwhile, the widespread power outages occurred following the collapse of numerous transmission towers, which forced a shutdown of a key power station. The storm also wreaked havoc on Melbourne's transportation network, resulting in the suspension of half of the city's train lines.
Meanwhile, in Turkey, 9 gold mine workers were swallowed by a massive landslide that rolled over their open pit. Hundreds of Turkish rescuers searched for survivors through a cyanide-laced field. Jay Suarez tells us more.
Captured images reveal how the landslide sweeps across a valley and crashes into a road where some of the gold mine workers are traveling by vehicle. Turkish Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya says there is no news of the 9 out of the 667 employees at the mine. The mine is located in the remote Ilik district of the eastern Erzincan province. Presence in the ground of cyanide is making the search more difficult. The mining labor union representative says cyanide soil collapsed at the site, which can make the rescue efforts harder and longer to accomplish. The mine cyanide field is reported to be one of Turkey's largest. Jay Suarez from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A car crash has left 1 dead, injuring 5 others after plowing into Austin Medical Center's emergency room. Officials said a child was hospitalized after sustaining potentially critical injuries. Police said the car smashed into the lobby of the ER. Rescuers rushed to the site, pulling the driver from the car. The driver, however, succumbed to his injuries. Authorities said the crash was under investigation without immediate word on the cause. The Austin Police Department said the incident appeared to be unintentional.
A driverless taxi was set on fire in San Francisco after a mob of revelers attacked the vehicle. This was the latest in a series of protests targeting autonomous vehicles in the state. San Francisco Fire Department said that a group of people jumped on the driverless taxi in the city's Chinatown. Local officials identified the car, a Jaguar I-Pace operated by Waymo. The vehicle was unoccupied and no arrest had been made. Waymo said that they are working closely with local safety officials to respond to the situation. The attack followed the tensions between San Francisco residents and automated vehicle operators. This is after Waymo's rival Cruise's robo-taxi struck and dragged a pedestrian last year.
Mexico has seized over 40 tons of methamphetamine at its biggest drug haul from a lab in Sonora State. The Mexican Navy noted that the meth was equivalent to about half of the 162,000 pounds of the drug Mexico has confiscated all year so far. Another 28,000 pounds of meth chemicals were also found at the drug lab. Authorities report that the facility has over 200 centrifuges and boilers and condensing chambers. A year ago, Mexican soldiers also seized more than 500,000 fentanyl pills in Culiacan, Sinaloa State. The Army described the drug bust as the largest synthetic drug lab found to date.
Two Argentinian men taken captive by Hamas were rescued in an early morning IDF raid in the middle of Israeli airstrikes in the city of Rafah.
In the early morning at 1:49 a.m., special forces breached a civilian building in Rafah and found the two hostages who were being helmed by armed terrorists in an apartment on the second floor. 1 minute after the building was breached, the Air Force and Southern Command activated aerial fire to enable the forces' disengagement and strike Hamas terrorists in the area. Yamam officers from the Israel Police Special Forces shielded the two hostages with their bodies until they could be extracted under fire, accompanied by IDF forces.
The raid was done in the middle of Israeli airstrikes, which killed about 100 people, according to local authorities. The hostages, 60-year-old Fernando Simon Marman and 70-year-old Luis Har, had spent 128 days in captivity, but were in relatively good condition and have now reunited with their families. Israel Defense Forces spokesman Daniel Hagari told reporters that the complex rescue operation was conducted after receiving highly sensitive and valuable intelligence involving Shin Bet, police, and Israeli Defense Forces. A potential incursion into Rafah has prompted concern in the international community as the city has become a last refuge for Palestinians fleeing south to avoid Israel's air and ground campaigns. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has brushed off criticism of plans for the ground assault as he pledges to provide safe passage for civilians.
State health officials in Alaska said that an elderly man has died from Alaska pox, the first known fatality from the recently discovered virus. In a bulletin, public officials said the man, who lived in the remote Kenai Peninsula, was hospitalized last November and died in late January. The man was undergoing cancer treatment and had a suppressed immune system because of the drugs, which may have contributed to the severity of his illness. Health officials said the man who died resided alone in a forested area and reported no recent travel and no close contact with recent travel, illness, or similar lesions. Health officials said Alaska pox, or AKPV, is related to smallpox, cowpox, and mpox. Symptoms can include a rash, swollen lymph nodes, and joint or muscle pain.
Lawmakers at the European Parliament have approved a provisional agreement on the landmark AI Act. The AI Act aims to set the guardrails for technology used from banking to cars to electronic products, airlines, and security and police purposes. The initiative is set to regulate generative AI. This includes OpenAI's ChatGPT, which are AI systems trained on gathered sets of data. Earlier this month, the European Union countries have provided their support after France secured concession to lighten the administrative burden on high-risk AI systems. Other tech firms, however, remained unsure about the vague and general terms used in the requirements, noting the impact of the law on innovation.
An American spaceship attempting a lunar landing launches tomorrow, February 15. It is the second private-led effort this year after the first one ended in failure. Philip Toledo has the details.
Intuitive Machines is a Houston-based company. It leads mission IM-1, aiming to become the first company to achieve a soft touchdown on the moon and land the first U.S. robot on its surface since 1972's Apollo 17 mission. Its golf cart-sized Nova C lander named Odysseus blasts off on top of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida at 12:57 a.m. local time. Odysseus is due to reach its landing site, Malapert A, on February 22. Malapert A is an impacted crater 300 kilometers from the South Pole. It is where NASA hopes to eventually build a long-term presence and harvest ice for both drinking water and rocket fuel under Artemis. Artemis is NASA's flagship Moon to Mars program. Philip Toledo for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, New York Fashion Week impresses once again. Shaq comes back to Orlando. And Meghan Markle announces her new projects. Catch more news in sports and entertainment when we return.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Let's get together, Sunday 25, Sunday 25.
Hello po! Ako po si Smokey Manaloto, ang inyong designated chef para sa Lutong Dasa ngayong Sabado, 11 a.m. Ang mga lulutuin ay Chinese lumpia, turmeric chicken, pinsek frito at squid rings with black bean sauce. Ngayong Sabado lang yan, alas 11 sa Lutong Dasa. Ako po, si Smokey Manaloto.
Let's get together, Sunday 25, Sunday 25.
The Korean Embassy in Manila has opened the application for the prestigious Global Korea Scholarship, or GKS, Embassy Track. It said that it has set aside 17 slots for Filipino nationals who want to pursue higher education in Korea. The GKS is a government-funded scholarship that provides foreigners an opportunity to study in Korean universities and promote mutual friendship among countries. The scholarship covers round-trip airfare tickets, monthly stipends, tuition fees, scholarship completion grants, Korean language training, and medical insurance. Guidelines for the application to 2024 GKS are accessible on the Korean Embassy website. The application period will run from February 13 to March 6. The recent embassy data shows that more than 300 Filipinos have been able to study in Korea since 1968 through the GKS.
New York Fashion Week is ablaze with excitement as several luminaries grace Michael Kors' Fall-Winter 2024 runway show in the heart of New York City. Among the attendees of Michael Kors' show was Blake Lively, stunning in an all-brown ensemble, accentuated by a matching printed skirt and coat. Photographs captured her seated alongside Vogue's iconic Anna Wintour, her sister Robin Lively, and other distinguished guests. Katie Holmes was also present, radiating elegance as she posed for photographs with Gabrielle Union, Nicole Ari Parker, and Brie Larson. Meanwhile, Beyoncé made a surprise front row appearance at the Loire Fashion Show, dressed in a silver ensemble, adorned with a bejeweled blazer dress, a silver hood dripping in gems, thigh-high boots, and a sparkling silver cowboy hat. She was seated beside her mother, Tina Knowles, and just a few seats away from her sister, Solange Knowles, who was elegantly clad in all black. However, the stunning family was not there for superstar duty, but rather to support Solange's son, Daniel Smith Jr., as he made his debut in the New York Fashion Show.
Ajuma rappers from South Korea are hyping their hometown with raps about farm life and giving off an energetic feel to their quiet rural area. Suni and the Seven Princesses became instant celebrities after debuting in a community center in August last year in Chilgo County, North Gyeongsang. 150 people became their initial fans, and as the group's popularity became nationwide, TV shows appearances in local towns to perform paved the way for their group to garner fame, and a YouTube video with more than 77,000 views. Park Jong-soon, also known by her stage name Suni, said that they are reliving their youth while performing while wearing bucket hats, metal jewelry, and baggy pants. The group said that they missed out on education when they were young, but have continued to learn reading and writing Hangul, the Korean alphabet.
In 1992, the Orlando Magic drafted a center by the name of Shaquille O'Neal as the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft, and he donned the number 32. Now, to celebrate their 35th season, they've decided to retire a number for the first time. Vin Pasqua has that story.
Shaquille O'Neal was Orlando's first in lots of ways. First #1 overall draft pick. First player to make an all-star team in a Magic uniform. First Rookie of the Year. First All-NBA selection. And the first big-time superstar to leave the franchise. Orlando went 71-76 in their first 3 seasons, then got O'Neal and went 41-41 in his rookie year. 50-32 with the team's first playoff appearance in his second season, 57-25 with a trip to the NBA Finals in 1994-1995 season, and finally 60-22 in his fourth and final season with Orlando. O'Neal left Orlando after the 1995-96 season for the Lakers, having played 295 regular season games with the Magic, but he remains 6th on the team's overall scoring list. The banner was hoisted amid a display of fireworks in a darkened arena roughly an hour after the game ended. Many of O'Neal's former Orlando teammates were there, including Penny Hardaway, Dennis Scott, and Nick Anderson. Shaq, who has number 34 retired by the Los Angeles Lakers and number 32 retired by the Miami Heat, is the third player to have his jersey retired by 3 franchises, joining the rare company of Wilt Chamberlain and Pete Maravich.
Orlando will forever have a special place in my heart. It's because get it right. It's a real honor to be the first Orlando Magic player to get his jersey retired.
Reporting for Sports, Vin Pasqua for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Appo Hiking Society brings their iconic and timeless music to Australia. Their first stop, Perth. Jenalyn Despi has that story.
The once remarkable trio is celebrating their 50th year in music and entertainment. The now duo, Buboy Garofilio and Jim Paredes, gave their fans the same vibe and flavor when Danny Javier was still with them. Before the concert, Jim and Buboy had dinner with friends from the media and answered questions from Perth-based broadcast journalists, vloggers, and other media people. Appo Hiking Society has 27 albums and around 300 songs to their name. And amazingly, fans agree that most of their songs still appeal to listeners, even up to this day. Jim and Buboy shared with the crowd the secret behind their 50-year career and original, remarkable music.
It's because we really love what we're doing, writing things for the Filipino, and for the Filipino.
In Perth, Australia, Jenalyn Despi, for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Katy Perry revealed on Jimmy Kimmel Live on Monday that she's leaving American Idol. Stephanie Mayo has the scoop.
Katy Perry is exiting American Idol after 7 seasons. The 39-year-old pop star who joined the ABC show in 2018 announced her exit on Jimmy Kimmel Live on Monday night. Explaining her decision, Perry said she wanted to go see the world and hinted at more projects later this year, including new music. Perry told Kimmel that this is probably her last show, her last season for Idol. She added that she loved Idol so much and that it has connected her with the heart of America. But according to the Roar singer, she feels like she needs to go out and, in her own words, feel that pulse to her own beat. Perry joined Idol as a judge alongside Luke Bryan and Lionel Richie back in 2018 when ABC revived the show following its original 15-season run on Fox. Last year, ABC announced the return of Perry, Bryan, and Richie as judges for season 22, the first episode of which airs February 18th this year. As for a possible return to the show, Perry told Kimmel she'd be open to the idea. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, continues her podcasting era as she announces a new partnership deal less than a year after she and Prince Harry ended their Spotify contract. A yet-to-be-announced podcast is in the works for Meghan Markle after announcing a brand new partnership with Lemonada Media. Details about the new podcast were kept under wraps and has only hinted about the Duchess of Sussex serving as its host. In addition to this, Lemonada will also be streaming Markle's previous podcast titled Archetypes, produced by her and her husband's programming company, Archwell Productions. The re-release of the podcast, which debuted on Spotify last 2022, shows the first season that featured famous guests including Mariah Carey, Serena Williams, and Paris Hilton. Meghan shares her enthusiasm for the new project by stating that being able to support a female-founded company with a roster of thought-provoking and highly entertaining podcasts is a fantastic way to kick off 2024. Lemonada's founders, namely Jessica Cordova-Kramer and Stephanie Wittels-Watts, welcomed Markle with open arms, saying that they are thrilled to co-create a new series with her and are blown away by her deep desire to build compassion and community through this work. After stepping down as senior royals and moving to the U.S. in 2020, the former royal couple have made multiple media deals, such as their personal docu-series on Netflix titled Harry and Meghan, and their podcast deal with Spotify, which lasted 3 years.
And in the blink of an eye, it's already midweek. To send you off today, here's a quote from Australian author Kate Morton. You make life of what you have, not what you're missing.
And during a time when it is so easy to compare yourself to others, I think that quote is so important because we should focus on what we have and not what we don't have.
And always see everything to be a blessing. And whatever it is that you don't have, you can work on getting that sometime in the future.
And embrace the little things as well.
And before we call it a night, for those of you still on the road, don't fail to tune in to Agila FM 95.5.
You can also catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point. Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International as your trusted news source, keeping you connected to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.